Hello, tea friends. This is Barb Gully of Barbs Tea Service, and today we are here for our 17th podcast, courtesy On TV Studios.
17. We are at 17 now in Lake Orion, where I saw the sign that says, "We're living as a vacation." It doesn't get any better than this, does it?
Is that how you feel every time we do a podcast?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep that thought. That's great.
Right.
Okay. So, welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome to vacation.
I know.
Okay, so here with my studio engineer, co-host, and as always, arm candy, Chris Gully.
There we are.
Hello.
Yep.
So I want to wish you a happy National Afternoon Tea Week.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
While you're on vacation here.
Yeah. Yes.
And today, I thought we would talk about this amazing holiday and observance.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how and when it was created.
Uh-huh. The origin story.
The origin story, right. And this doesn't seem to have as many different iterations as some of the ones that we have had. Yes. Origin stories where there's several different ones. But this is probably because it's fairly recent.
The day is young.
The day is young, exactly. So we're going to talk about the holiday, the observance, how we have celebrated it in recent years, and then in tribute, thought we'd share some of the afternoon tea venues that we have been in the British Isles. And then we'll wrap up with a tea room visit that it's closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
It's in New York. And
it was fab.
It was fab. Okay, so let's get to that, but first, tea.
Here we go.
Okay, today's selection is Earl Grey. But this Earl Grey is from the tea room that we visited in Hudson Valley last month in Troy, New York. And they sell their own brand of tea. This is loose leaf, and I'm going to hold this up.
All right.
Can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
This is their version of Earl Grey.
Yes.
And I selected this for two reasons. Usually I have two reasons. And one is no big surprise. I love Earl Grey.
You do.
And I found out this week that a famous fictional character is also fond of Earl Grey.
That's right. Who could that be?
Captain Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Of course.
And we're throwing in another Star Trek reference into this, and I love it.
Yeah, so it's not from my reference point.
No.
It'd be more of a Love Boat. What's Gopher going to drink?
What is he going to drink?
Check with Isaac at the bar.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was in a book that I have talked about before. It's been featured in our blog. It is Steeped, The Chemistry of Tea by Professor Michelle Frankel. And I'll show that to the camera as well.
Yep. Very good.
Okay. And I was taking a deep dive into the book. And at one point, she mentions that this Captain Picard summons up.
Oh, yes. Well, it's the 23rd century.
Oh, okay.
And he's got a machine, and you just tell it what you want, and it will atomically, molecularly assemble and provide it for you, whatever it is. He happens to be, he likes his Earl Grey as well in the 23rd century.
He does like his Earl Grey. And so I guess I'm in sort of good company.
That's right. Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk more about that book and the chemistry of tea in a later podcast. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. Another amazing Star Trek reference.
Yes.
And also, the other reason I picked it was because we had been to the Whistling Kettle in Troy last month. And we're going to wrap up our podcast, if we have time, and I think we will, about our visit there. Okay. So I brought back this Earl Grey for us, but I also brought back something kind of, I thought, different and worth a try, blueberry ginger.
Yes.
And I thought, well, I'll we'll try that when Rob comes on the podcast next.
I love that idea.
Yeah, sort of dangle that carrot in front of him.
Yeah.
And instead, we'll use blueberry ginger and maybe even Carrick.
You gotta hit all the notes here.
Okay.
All right.
So now let's get to the tea.
All right.
What
here
do you
we go.
think of that?
All right. Let me have another little taste here. Yeah. So it's definitely, it's got that Earl Grey. So this has a lot of it's a bit more floral, but it's still got that citrus thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I want to use the word. I was looking at my flavor wheel, and it was a little more on the I guess jasmine. If you ever have jasmine rice, it's got that kind of of flavor tone to it. So that's my take.
I agree with you. I think you summed that up quite well. It's maybe a little more subtle than some of them too.
Yeah.
You don't get that heavy duty bergamot. So okay.
Very good.
Good job.
All right.
Okay, took another quick sip.
All right.
As we are going to be celebrating National Afternoon Tea Week.
I can't wait.
So this is a holiday that is celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So not kind of new on the scene.
Mm-hmm. It's in the UK, right?
It's in the UK, and it's during the week of August. This month, it's between the 12th and the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're right in there.
Right.
And a lot of U.S. tea enthusiasts have sort of adopted this holiday.
They should.
They should. So I thought before we got to the origins of National Afternoon Tea Week, we'd just talk a little bit briefly about what afternoon tea is.
Uh-huh.
If you're a tea enthusiast already, if you have followed our podcast and our blog, you're probably pretty familiar with afternoon tea.
You're educated.
Yeah.
And high-minded.
Oh, okay. And
Right.
maybe you watch Star Trek.
That's right.
Okay. So afternoon tea, very quickly, is credited to Anna, Duchess of Bedford, about 1840,
Right.
contemporary of Queen Victoria.
Uh-huh.
And at this time, the wealthy folks, their dinner hour was quite late in the evening.
Uh-huh.
So when Anna, Duchess of Bedford, was being served her tea at about 5 o'clock, she might have been getting a little hangry.
Peckish. As well.
Peckish,
Yeah.
yes,
That's
exactly.
the other word. Yes.
So I think she wanted to enhance or maybe supersize
Uh-huh.
her afternoon tea.
Yeah.
And she began asking for cakes and breads to be
Right.
served along with it.
Get that sugar level up.
Exactly. Don't worry about the crash later.
Yeah.
And she really liked this, started sharing it with her friends, and it just took off. And it morphed into what we call afternoon tea today.
Right. Uh-huh.
And it's generally served between 4 and 5, although there's a lot of latitude these days. I've seen it as early as noon all the way up to 6 o'clock.
Right.
But what does afternoon tea, what's the traditional afternoon tea fare? Chris, do you know what there's generally 3 courses associated with it.
Right. We're talking about, so there's the three tray thing.
Right.
All right. So the cream tea is just tea and scones, and that's not really tied to anything. We're talking about afternoon tea.
Exactly.
And that's an afternoon tea is not a high tea, which we'll probably talk about later. But
Right.
Right.
Right. Because we've talked about
Yep,
some of the differences.
Right.
there, But
anyway, so you got the savory, the sandwiches, and then the middle one has your pastries, your scones, and that sort of thing, biscuits, and then the top are the sweets.
the sweets.
Yeah.
Yes. That's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, okay, you nailed it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I would be surprised if you didn't know that just because of all the afternoon teas you've gone on.
I've been on a couple.
You have. Okay. So let's talk about National Afternoon Tea Week. And Chris, I think you're going to find this pretty interesting because the creator of this week is an IT professional.
Amazing. So he's a good guy already. And I've commented that, I've had a 40-year career in IT myself, and I made pretty good living basically telling people to turn it off and turn it back on.
Reboot.
That's right.
I think you did that just recently. You're a consultant.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes.
It never gets old.
And you were right.
Yeah.
So, okay, very good. All right. So, if you want to know more about this origin story, last year in Tea Time Magazine, they did a full piece on this when it was in its 9th year. Now it's in its 10th.
Yep.
So if you want to know more, you can check out Tea Time from last year. But the story starts with Keith Newton.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an IT professional and a tea enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for a creative way to use his mad IT skills.
Yes, and he's not related to Sir Isaac. Correct.
You know what? I actually looked that up. And according to AI chatbot,
Okay.
no link.
Okay.
So
okay.
there
All
you
right.
go.
All right.
But kind of interesting that, you got two guys who are, one's responsible for
Yep.
the
Physics.
and the other one,
Calculus. Yeah.
the other one's like tea.
Tea. Yeah.
Okay,
I
great.
get it.
All
Okay.
right. So he's looking for a way to be creative with his skills, and he notices that there's no website for afternoon tea.
Shocking.
It was kind of shocking.
Yeah.
So he sees that afternoon tea in London is usually associated with the 5-star hotels like Dorchester or Claridge's, and people were often kind of curious that, or they didn't know what to do.
Right.
What do I wear? What's the etiquette? How do I go about this? So he set up. He said, okay, I see a need and an opportunity. So he went to these hotels and different tea venues in London and connected with them to make this website.
Yeah.
And
it's really to reduce intimidation, right?
Exactly. And just connect this whole group of people who want to come together for afternoon tea. So he set up this website, and it's called afternoontea.co.uk.
Right.
And it became so popular that became his full-time job. He started hiring people.
Wow.
So, he had his own company. And this is a full-service website. So you can make reservations, you can find reviews of different tea rooms, etc.
That's amazing.
And he's got over 700 venues from Ireland and the UK.
We'll have to check that out.
We will. We will. So he started this in 2002. Fast forward to 2014, and Keith Newton, savvy guy, he says, I want to figure out how to bring more business into tea venues in London during August.
He's an influencer before there were influencers.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. A tea influencer.
There you go.
So anyway, this is a time in London in August where a lot of locals are on holiday.
Sure.
They take that month off.
Yep.
So he got together, he talked to some of the venues, and they put together this afternoon tea week. And they do special promotions and special tea menus just for this week. And so it took off. It's now in its 10th year. And I love what Keith Newton said about the purpose of this. It just boils down to this little statement. He said, the purpose is to promote afternoon tea in all its forms, be it simple cream tea at home or afternoon at a posh hotel.
That's wisdom.
It is. So he's talking the gamut, which we have in all our travels have experienced. And I also want to note that I think we personally can see the benefit of when an IT professional partners with a tea etiquette consultant.
It's incredible.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Okay, so we really do hold this holiday or observance in high esteem.
Yep.
Last year, we celebrated National Afternoon Tea Week in New York.
We did.
And we were with our favorite New York couple, Matt and Jenna. And do you remember where we went?
Was that the not the Ritz, the Plaza?
The Plaza.
Yeah,
Plaza, right. And a very fancy hotel right in Manhattan.
Yep. You go into the lobby and it's breathtaking.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. So this hotel started in 1907.
Right.
I think some of the rooms now have been converted into
Condos or
high-end
yeah.
condos.
Yeah, right.
But they've kept the Palm Court
Mm-hmm.
as a tribute to this time period.
Right.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's breathtaking. They have the marble columns,
Yep.
and they have that stained glass
Yep.
canopy.
Yep.
Beautiful.
They don't make them like that anymore.
They really don't.
Yeah.
So that was a fun way. We were there during National Afternoon Tea Week,
Mm-hmm.
and they have great service, great food, great tea.
Right.
That also, we had discovered afterwards that they had some very famous people who have had tea there.
Like, besides us?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So Frank Lloyd Wright,
Uh-huh.
the Beatles.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be amazing to have a cup of tea with Sir Paul?
Yeah.
I don't even need Earl Grey.
Yeah. No, okay.
And then also the fictional character Eloise,
Oh, okay.
a children's book
Yeah.
where she has tea
Yeah.
at the plaza, and they have a children's menu for
Ah,
dedicated to Eloise. So if you
Yeah.
bring your kids along,
Very
your
good.
younger kids.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we've been to many tea rooms in the UK
Mm-hmm.
and Ireland, and we've been to the posh homes, we've been to castles, and we've also had tea behind bars.
We have.
So I thought we'd talk about some of those highlights.
Uh-huh.
And I first start out with, since we were talking about Keith Newton and he mentioned Claridge's.
Right.
We were there in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and we were there with Matt and Rachel,
Right,
our
right.
two kids.
Yeah,
Who are they?
Yeah.
Yes, Matt and Rachel.
Uh-huh.
And we started this tradition back in 2006 when we brought the whole family.
Right,
Rob was
right.
with us too. And we take the night flight,
Yep.
and you get into London, and
Yep.
it's morning, and you're exhausted.
You've been up for 30 hours because no one can sleep on a plane.
Right. and you're just not in the mood to, all you want to do is take a nap.
But you need to not do that
You need it.
because then you've lost 2 days just adjusting.
Exactly.
So power through it, and
Power
what
through it.
better way than to have an afternoon tea?
Right. So we schedule afternoon tea on the day of arrival, and we
Right.
did it at Claridge's.
Mhm.
And do you remember much about Claridge's, Chris?
Well, it's been a minute, but it was a great venue, and I remember the service is very attentive, and the food and the tea was spectacular.
It really was. And one thing, two things of special note. They have the beautiful china that is linked to their service. It's kind of a Tiffany blue and white stripe,
Uh-huh.
and they don't serve it in the tower or the tiers, but they serve it in trays.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they had the most amazing desserts.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Works of art.
Yep.
And I have some of those in pictures in our blog.
Okay.
And so if you want to
Check that out.
check that out. We'll
Yep.
talk about that a little bit later. But
Mhm.
okay. So then we went to Ireland,
Uh-huh.
and we went with the kids again, Matt
Mhm.
and Rachel, and I think that was 2012.
Mhm.
And we had teas both extremes. Westbury Hotel,
Right.
5-star hotel,
Uh-huh.
middle of Dublin,
Yep.
crazy busy.
Yep.
Go in,
Yep.
this little oasis.
Yes. Serene.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Crystal chandeliers.
Uh-huh.
Oh, just everything was top notch.
Yep.
But then we went to the other extreme.
We did, because that's what we do.
And we went to Kilmainham Jail.
Spelled GAOL.
Right.
We'll have you know.
Right.
Yeah.
We weren't quite sure what this was, but
Yeah.
when we got to Dublin, everyone, taxi drivers,
Yeah. Go see the jail.
see the jail.
Yeah.
See the
The
jail.
Irish are built different.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah.
So they had a tea room there.
Yes, they did.
It was more of a kind of cafeteria,
Yeah.
but they called it a tea room.
Yeah. With replete with iron bars on the windows.
Right.
Yes.
Because as if the story isn't sad enough.
I know.
The
Yeah.
place is just so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
But that you do have the
Yeah.
bars on the window. So
And then it's also the scene. So this is a important part of Irish history. Very turbulent part of Irish history where There some Irish partisan was captured by the British Army and tried and condemned to be shot, but he was very ill. He was wounded or something like that.
Right. Right.
So they put him on a chair, tied him to the chair in the corner there against the wall, and there's this plaque and everything, and executed him there, just a few steps away from where we were having tea. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's so significant, though. I mean, it really does make you pause,
Right.
Because this is what caught everybody's attention.
Right.
Like, this
Yep.
was the last straw.
It was, yep.
We need some dignity
Yep.
here. So
Right.
it was great to see that part of history and
Right.
understand where
Yep.
all that came from.
Yep.
So yes, so we're behind bars, but we escaped.
Yep.
And then I would mention we have had tea at some castles.
We have.
And when we were in Scotland, we had tea at Holyrood Palace.
Mm-hmm.
You and I did.
Uh-huh.
And
In Edinburgh.
in Edinburgh.
Yep.
And that was a while ago. That was,
Right.
I think, 2018. And it's not a fancy tea room.
No.
It's kind of in a place adjacent to the palace.
Right.
Very, very modest, I'd say, but the tea was great.
Mhm.
Service was great. We also, and we just recently had tea with Matt and Jenna at Prestonfield.
That's right.
In Edinburgh.
Right.
Which has royal connections.
Yes.
Beautiful. You could take me back there again,
All right.
even with the bad parking.
Wow. Okay. All right.
All right. So, what else have we? Rachel and I, when she did her study abroad in 2012, we went to a few fancy tea rooms, and we went to the Kensington Palace.
Yes.
And they have an orangery it was once
Yep.
part of the
Right,
palace, and
right.
now it's a tea room. And Rachel, I think that was one of her favorite tea rooms.
Yes.
It's very modern, very bright.
Right.
But they also serve tea there from one of England's it's their only tea plantation.
Uh-huh.
And it's called Tregathenen.
Okay.
I always have a little trouble with
Yes.
that.
All right. Yeah.
But so when we were there, it's only been around for 20 years. It's in Cornwall.
Yes. So Cornwall's kind of it's at the lowest tip of England proper, and I mean there's some part. So and it's abuts against the Gulf Stream.
Right.
So the temperatures are comparatively speaking fairly temperate. There's actually I've read that there's some islands off the coast actually have palm trees. It's yeah.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a micro, what do they call it? Microclimate.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That makes sense
Yep.
because you don't normally think of
No.
that having the climate for
Right.
tea plantation, although we have one in northern Michigan.
We do.
So,
We do. Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we had tea at a couple places that stood in for Pemberley and a couple of filming sites.
Right.
We went to Lime Park and we went to Chatsworth.
Yes.
But I think Lime Park is the one that we should really talk about.
Well, yes. So it was one of our trips. We like to drive, and so we had our GPS. We punched in Lime Park and start driving. And so the fun thing and the dangerous thing about traveling in England is it's compared to the United States, fairly small and compact. So you can get lost. And we knew the state was in the Peak District, and we're driving along, and we're noticing a distinct lack of peaks, in our surroundings. So finally, we get to our. We were like way off.
right.
It was it was some apartment complex called Lime Park Estates. Oops.
It wasn't. It was just sort of an ordinary
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
And so we were way out. What were 2 hours?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So I called Lime Park.
Yeah.
We had afternoon tea reservations, and I said we're going to be a
A
little,
little
bit
late. Yeah.
And they said, "Don't worry about it. We'll keep a table open for you."
Right.
But this was a place. This is Lime Park. So this was the outside of
Right.
Mr. Darcy's Pemberley.
Right.
in the BBC 1995 version.
Yes.
My favorite.
Uh-huh.
And the thing that you could do here, though, was if you had enough time.
Yeah, if you didn't take a side trip to wherever.
They have a closet where you can put on period costumes and have your tea.
Right.
So we kind of missed that opportunity. And then I was
Darn.
I was thinking, did you get off track?
No, I would never.
No,
do
you would never do that. Okay. So in our short time left,
Right.
I think what we've got 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. Just real quick, wanted to talk about the Whistling Kettle
Yes.
in Troy, New York.
Yeah.
So
And
we were
you so want to say Troy, Michigan, don't you?
I have I?
Yeah.
I may have.
Yeah.
So we lived in Troy, Michigan for
Yeah.
over 20 years.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
it's a hard habit to break. But this is Troy, New York, and we were there for a couple of reasons:
Yep.
Gilded Age tour, and also to visit family.
Yep.
And we were there with Matt and Jenna.
Uh-huh.
So after our tour of the Gilded Age, which we are going to feature in a future podcast, it's going to be so exciting. I cannot wait. But we went to have tea at the Whistling Kettle. It's in
Right.
downtown Troy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And on our way, we passed some of the places on our tour.
Right.
Like the store that stands in for Bloomingdale's.
Uh-huh.
And also
Yeah.
Mrs. Astor's brownstone.
Yes.
Where
Yep.
she would not receive
No, she would not.
new money, Mrs. Russell.
No way.
But Whistling Kettle, they welcome everybody.
That's right.
And so it's a big place.
Uh-huh.
They have a dining room. They
Right.
have two dining rooms,
Yeah, right,
actually.
right.
One in the back, one in
Yes.
the front,
Very expansive.
and a nice retail spot in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And we got lucky. We got to choose a seating in the front window,
Right. Uh-huh.
observe the outside patio
Yep.
and the street scene. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they had two tea offerings that I found very interesting and unique.
Yes.
The first one was what they called the Tower.
Yes.
And it's their version of afternoon tea.
Right.
You can pick a savory. I had a quiche.
Mm-hmm.
Your second course, you can choose from a salad or soup.
Mm-hmm.
Last one, you can choose your flavor of scone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the nice thing about this is you don't have to make reservations ahead of time
They
because
show up.
understandably,
Yeah.
most places need at least a day.
Right.
But this is just something nice. You have an afternoon tea
Yep.
fix. You want to get that.
Yep.
You can have it. They serve it every day.
Yep.
And then you had
It broke all the rules.
it did. What did
I
you?
had a BLT scone. I was eating a scone as a sandwich.
They call it a scone witch.
They do. Those Americans.
And what was kind of fun is they have different variations. So they have a vegan offering,
Right,
but you
right.
had the BLT.
Yep.
They have the ham and cheese.
Yep.
And what we say in proper tea etiquette
Yes.
is that if you're eating a scone,
Yep.
you don't eat it like a sandwich.
No.
But the scone witch,
Yes.
you can. Oh boy, you can really get
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
mitts around that and eat it like a cheeseburger.
That was wonderful.
Okay, so I have a feeling
We got about a little over a minute.
a little over a minute. So we're
Yeah.
going to be hearing our own Whistling Kettle
There we go.
soon.
All right.
And just a couple things I want to remind people of
Right.
is that we have all this information on our blogs,
Yep.
and we're going to put on the website and
Right.
our blog all references to the blogs that we talk about during our podcast.
Yes.
So if you want to know more,
Yep.
you can do that. And are we hearing that?
Oh, yeah. I think we are. Okay.
All right. So I want to wish everybody a very happy National Afternoon Tea Week. There's still time.
All right.
Thanks to my co-host, Arm Candy Chris.
Yep.
Thanks to all who are listening and on TV. And we'd like to say, please stay tuned.
Excellent. Okay. See you later.